Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, celebrating 2021. So glad that you are joining us, and I hope that you guys had a great start to your 2021. This episode talks about how Tucker and I spent our New Year's Eve. Mine a little more involved with my Matthew McConaughey marathon. You hear more about that here. And Tucker and I also are going to discuss New Year's resolutions, and we've got some for JJ Meets World that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. And if you have ideas for us, send them to us. You can find us on social media. You can find us on our website, jjmeetsworld.com. And most importantly, I hope you're having a great 2021 already. Thanks for coming along for the ride. We got a lot of fun shaped up, ready to go. But let's get to this New Year's Matthew McConaughey marathon. It's all right, all right, all right. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
So I guess my 2021 started out pretty nice. I decided to do a movie marathon, and in my lifetime, I've done these weird, like, just follow a certain actor or actress. And so I've done a Vince Vaughn movie marathon. I did a Reese Witherspoon one with previous guest Phil Lund. He and I have several times done that. And my wife and I decided to do a Matthew McConaughey marathon based on a movie I have been trying to get people to watch for years. And once they finally do watch it, they all tell me the same thing. With like, that movie was really good. I can't believe I haven't seen it yet. And it's a Matthew McConaughey movie called Mud that came out. Oh, it's got to be almost 10 years ago at this point.
I think so. Yeah, it's been a while.
Have you seen Mud, Tucker?
I have not, but you're recommending it, huh?
I really am. You know, it's got a feel of Huckleberry Finn and Great Expectations and kind of boyhood adventure.
So on a scale of all right to all right, how good is that as a Matthew McConaughey movie?
I would say this movie is all right.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Check it out.
I highly recommend it. So we watched this a couple days before New Year's, and we decided, you know what? Let's have a Matthew McConaughey New Year's movie marathon.
Was this something you had to really like convince Jill of, or was she 100% game from the go?
She was game from the go, especially because she had never seen Mud. And so I think because that movie was so good, she wanted a little bit more, right? It's like the ultimate appetizer. In America, we do appetizers wrong because appetizers sometimes are better than the meal, and they're in abundance. We need to be focusing on small plate appetizers that can't be interchangeable for a meal. That is what Mud is, as was, and will be.
I like to think that that's like the main lesson you've taken out of the pandemic. Like, as we're all like going into 2021 with our lessons from the previous year.
Yeah.
What are the rules for a movie to qualify as a Matthew McConaughey movie? Like, does he have to be the star, or is Angels in the Outfield game?
That is an excellent question, Tucker, because I dictate 50% or more McConaughey leads it to be a Matthew McConaughey movie, because there are iconic McConaughey roles where he's not actually in it that much.
Right, like Wolf of Wall Street, the McConaughey ratio is way down.
Right.
Way down.
Dazed and Confused. He's not actually in Dazed and Confused as much as you think that he is.
Mm-hmm. Tropic Thunder?
That doesn't count because he's really only in the beginning, a scene in the middle, and then the ending.
Right. That's right. Okay.
So so that limits you to a little bit, but luckily Matthew McConaughey has been making enough movies for a while that you could have this. And technically, I don't know if Mud falls under that 50% clause, because even though he's on the poster and he's right there, he is not in the movie as much as, let's say, like the main character is like a 13-year-old boy.
I guess 50% is really more of a, you know, when you see it kind of a thing, because he could be in it, say 35%, but be so integral to the movie that it would just fall apart if he wasn't there versus say, you know, I know this wouldn't be true, but say a movie like Angels in the Outfield where he's a bit part. Well, his character could be present for most of the movie, but he's just not doing much, right? There's not a lot for him to do. So you're probably just having to use your judgment of going, how McConaughey is this movie?
Right. The McConaughey scale is a little bit like the Scoville scale. And you can really feel the burn by the end of it if McConaughey has been in it enough. So this is how our movie marathon went. Started with Mud, and then the next night I convinced her to watch The Newton Boys, which came out in the late 90s, and it's about a bunch of brothers who, it's based on a real story, who robbed a bunch of banks and then robbed a train, the most successful train robbery in American history.
Isn't it hard whenever describing a Matthew McConaughey movie to not slip into a Southern twang while describing it? It's a bunch of brothers and they go and they rob a train.
When you watch enough of these movies back to back, you realize they justify his Texas drawl in almost every single movie. Like they explain something like, even though in Ed TV, they live in San Francisco, he's the first person to say like, well, you know, we lived with my daddy in Texas until I was 12, and then we moved up here because Al got a job. And they just have a throwaway line for why he has that accent, but he lives in a different part of the country.
It's just like how the opening few minutes of every Will Smith movie needs to explain why the central character is Will Smith.
Yep, exactly. In fact, we almost had a Will Smith marathon, by the way.
Ooh, yeah. Well, maybe a future holiday.
So, okay. So how does this whole thing starts with us, and then we watch the Newton Boys, and then I had a haircut on New Year's Eve, and when I got home, I'm like, it's time to get full McConaughey.
I had a haircut on New Year's Eve. I thought was you naming the next movie you watched.
Oh no,
for a second.
I mean, that could be a movie. Let me jot down that idea.
Title of a movie that was early in an actor's career.
So we started with the movie Ed TV. Are you familiar with the movie Ed TV, Tucker?
Familiar with, but have not seen.
Okay. So Ed TV is just like The Truman Show in the fact that it is a movie about a guy who is watched all the time to make a television program. Now, just so you know, specifically, let's see. The Truman Show comes out June 5th, 1998. Okay. That's The Truman Show.
Okay.
And then Ed TV comes out in 1999, but it comes out, let's see here. Let's get specific. It comes out in March of 1999. So not even a year passes in between the release of these two movies. And we've talked before on this podcast about how for some reason Hollywood likes to go on these kicks where they're like Volcano and Dante's Peak, Thin Red Line and Saving Private Ryan. They're just movies where they take the same exact Deep Impact and Armageddon. They take the same exact plot line and they just shoehorn it into multiple movies. So Ed TV comes second, but Ed knows he's being filmed the whole time. It's not a fake world like The Truman Show. And Ellen DeGeneres has a really amazing role in this movie as the head of a television station. Rob Reiner is in it. It's directed by Ron Howard, so you get some classic Clint Howard action in there. He gets hair plugs from a doll. He gets doll's hair put in. So they somehow made Clint Howard even more repulsive than he is just naturally.
That's an actor just screaming for a movie marathon.
Oh, yeah, I know, because there's some great Clint Howard movies out there. Yep. And it includes most of Ron Howard's movies because he always includes them on there. So we watch Ed TV, and I noticed something right away in Ed TV, which is Adam Goldberg. Are you familiar with Adam Goldberg?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Adam Goldberg plays Ed's friend in this. And I thought to myself, well, that's funny because Adam Goldberg is also in Dazed and Confused. So then I think about, okay, Woody Harrelson. So Woody Harrelson goes on to make True Detective and Surfer Dude with Matthew McConaughey in the future. And I start noticing that Matthew McConaughey must enjoy working with people so much that he once he becomes a big star, can get other people that he likes working with into the projects.
Gotcha.
So he does the same thing with William H. Macy, works with William H. Macy in 2 different roles, and where he has an amazing mustache, William H. Macy, in both of these movies. So I think that that's kind of fun. I always like it when I think that celebrities are friends in real life and they have shenanigans offset. So Ed TV is the first one. It's a good McConaughey palate cleanser because going into this, you don't really see what his future is going to be.
Wait, so you're starting with the palate cleanser?
Yes,
okay.
Because we think about right now, you have an idea of who Matthew McConaughey is in your mind right now, don't you?
And that morning you may have had some Woody Harrelson and you really need to just move on and make sure that everything's ready for only Matthew.
And so this was nice. So then we follow that up with A Time to Kill, which is easily one of the most gut-wrenching first 30 minutes of a movie I have ever seen in my entire life. Are you familiar with A Time to Kill, Tucker?
Very familiar, because in high school, at least for us, maybe for you guys, A Time to Kill was actually on our required reading list for AP English.
Yep.
And then we watched the movie as well after we had read through the book. And yeah, it's brutal. It's dark.
It's one of those movies that, this is another thing I've learned. Matthew McConaughey also likes playing a lawyer. So he does it several times in his career.
He does. Because one of my favorite Matthew McConaughey movies is got to be on your list here at some point, where he plays another lawyer. But we'll get to it. So he, in this movie, works with a young Sandra Bullock, post Speed, but really hasn't found like her niche as a leading lady yet. Oliver Platt, who steals every single scene that he's in. Always.
Right. Donald Sutherland, who he then goes and plays later on with in the movie Fool's Gold. So he's got Sutherland. And this is also the first time I ever watched Time to Kill. And I'm like, oh my God, Donald Sutherland and Kiefer Sutherland are both in this movie. I liked when I've seen a movie many times and I don't have to be concentrating on it with 100% of my being. One of the things I like to do is while I'm watching a movie to read the IMDb trivia page about it. And it gives me some insight into this movie. So originally Matthew McConaughey was cast as Freddie Lee Cobb, which is Kiefer Sutherland's role, the brother of one of the men that Samuel L. Jackson murders. Then he reads the script and he goes to Joel Schumacher and he's like, hey, I'd love not to play this part, but to play the lawyer instead.
Well, I'd like to be a lead.
Yeah. Well, and also there are roles that people take on that I think are really brave because you are playing an awful, awful, awful creature. And Kiefer Sutherland in this is one of those people who everything about him makes your skin crawl.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's interesting that he chose that he read that, and it's not like he didn't want to play that character, but he thought he'd have more by playing the lawyer in it. So A Time to Kill is the next movie. Also, A Time to Kill has an odd color pattern to it. If you watch it, it's definitely meant to be obviously based in the South. It's based in Mississippi. It's in Madison County, and one of the things about it is they definitely try and go for a dusty filter on everything. It's got, and quite frankly, it's Joel Schumacher, and Joel Schumacher has an obsession with these vibrant color palettes.
Mm-hmm.
So there, for example, there's a bar that they're eating at one point that's highlighted with pink lights and a real blue hue to everything. They're obviously trying to give a moonlight feel, but it's blue. So it's blues and pinks. And I thought, it's only 1 year later that he is full in Batman mode and being let's explore some black lights and see what we can do with those. So I finish A Time to Kill, and then we move on to a movie called Fool's Gold. Fool's Gold, I remember seeing in the theaters, and that was it. And I don't remember anything else about it. I remember I know I went to it in the theaters, and then that was it. And I know it was about buried treasure. It is a horrible movie. It is.
Fool's Gold is the kind of movie that I would expect you to go to bat for, JJ.
Oh no, it certainly is not. And like Alexis Denzia, who was hot off of Broken Flowers with Bill Murray, she's known in that movie as being like Sharon Stone's daughter.
Okay, yeah,
and she plays kind of this ditzy daughter of Donald Sutherland, and they've got millions of dollars, and Kate Hudson's in this, who of course he worked with, I think they made How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and then Fool's Gold after that, or I don't know, vice versa.
I think they've done enough movies together. They must have a couple Walmart box sets. They have to.
Probably. And if not, you probably get those two movies, but then you get an independent movie from each of them, right? You get you get A Time to Kill and then Skeleton Key as well. So you can see what they do when they're not teamed up together. It's not a fun movie in my opinion. And I see where they're coming from, where they're like, what can we do to get Matthew McConaughey to wear a billowy open shirt or no shirt for the entire movie? Well, you got to set it in the Bahamas. What's the Bahamas known for? What about if we made up some shipwreck story and they've got to get a bunch of gold coins? I love it. We can put everyone else in bikinis. This is perfect. And 2 hours later, you wonder, why am I still watching this? But I watched it. In fact, I had to pause that to ring in the new year. So let's see. So that's 3 Matthew McConaughey movies. Was all
that all in one day?
Yeah, that's all. That's in just New Year's Eve.
Okay. So that was 2020, and now it's 2021.
And so Jill and I wake up on New Year's Day, and we decide it's time to get the Matthew McConaughey train rolling again. Now, Jill loves sports movies, but does not care for sports in real life. So one of her favorite movies is Remember the Titans.
Okay.
So she thought We Are Marshall will be just as entertaining. Are you familiar with the story of We Are Marshall, Tucker?
Isn't that where a bunch of the kids die on a bus crash?
Yep. No, it's a plane crash. It's a plane crash.
Plane crash. So it's a bummer from the outset.
Here's what you have to know about this one. This one flirts dangerously close with not including 50% Matthew McConaughey.
Okay.
So this movie is clearly about the healing and the mourning of a town and a university. And Matthew McConaughey plays this guy who's got no affiliation whatsoever to the students, to the faculty, to the town, who asks for the head coaching job. It's not even offered to him. He asks for it. In the first, I'm going to say 40 minutes of this movie, he's not in it with the exception of one small scene where he learns about the plane crash. That's it. So Ian McShane is in this movie, and so is David Strathairn, who's one of my all-time favorite actors. Kate Mara, pre-House of Cards. Also, it's got Anthony Mackie before he became the Falcon. This movie looks like it should be a great sports movie, but it's not. It just, there's nothing about this that feels like they needed to make this movie. Like, this story needed to be told.
Yeah, was this based off a true event?
It is, yes. And so one of the big things that I think this movie suffers from is the movie's set like in 1974 or 76, something like that. And it does not, it's maybe got 3 popular songs. One of the things I love the most about Remember the Titans is the fact that it has the phenomenal soundtrack. Like, the soundtrack is just as big of a character as anyone else on screen. This movie does not use the awesome music of the 70s to help tell its story. And with the exception of Ian McShane and David Strathairn and Matthew McConaughey, you really don't know who any of their characters are. You're like, who are all these other teammates? And they made this exception for all of them coming in. And this movie has the ability where one of the things that they did in real life is, so you're not allowed, the NCAA did not allow freshmen to play on sports teams when they first got to college. But they make an exception for Marshall University so that they can recruit freshmen so they can actually have a team. There were only like 4 surviving members of this group, and it's because they weren't on that plane.
Gotcha.
So one of the things they do in a montage, a very quick montage, is it shows them going to the other sports that Marshall University already had, things like soccer and baseball, and just grabbing some kids from there. And they could have done a great job, like having a recruiting montage of bringing these kids in and telling them how important it will be for them to work together and da 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 da. And it just doesn't like happen. Now, Jill did start to cry during it. There's a scene where they go to a competing university and ask their head coach if they could teach them how to do this thing called the veer formation, which is an offensive formation, I believe. And he says, sure. And at one point they interact with a couple of these Western Virginia University players, and they have got a cross and an MU on the side of their helmets to honor the competitors, but also fellow athletes who died. And Matthew McConaughey says, like, that's a class move, coach. And Jill started to tear up at that point. So even in a movie that I think is probably like a 3 or a 4, Matthew McConaughey can still get you to tear up with his southern drawl. He also does this move in this movie where he talks out the side of his mouth most of the time, like how you'd imagine a 20s gangster would talk.
Yeah, like both him and Woody Harrelson have this like method of speaking where like it's as though they're pretending there's a kernel of popcorn at the back of their throat and they got to kind of get it out while they're talking to you, and they're chewing on everything inside their mouth and everything's coming out the side of their mouth. That's Matthew McConaughey for sure.
It's interesting you say that because I feel like I identify with these guys, and that's probably why, is I've got a kernel in my teeth and these guys look like they're trying to work one out. So it's perfect. After that, we decided we need a really good Matthew McConaughey movie. And there's nothing I like more than a movie where a hotshot, no matter what kind of profession this hotshot is in, but they get taken to task and they have to outsmart someone who's outsmarted them. Here are some examples. Did you ever see the movie Fracture?
No.
Oh
is
my
that
God.
A genre that you just outlined? I can't tell.
What?
Say it again. Say it. I just need the premise of these movies.
So it's where there's a hotshot in a professional field, and they are outsmarted, and they have to outsmart the person who outsmarted them.
Got it. Okay.
So, the movie's the Lincoln Lawyer.
Oh, got it. Yep,
okay.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So the Lincoln Lawyer, Ryan Felipe outsmarts hotshot defense attorney, not guilty, Matthew McConaughey, and kind of puts him into this box and he has to figure out a way to outsmart this rich kid who actually is rather intelligent, but is also a murderer and rapist.
Gotcha.
So there's another great movie that follows the same premise called Fracture. And in Fracture, Ryan Gosling is an attorney and he's working for the DA, but he wants to move over to be like a big time defense lawyer. And he has to try what should be a very simple murder case where Anthony Hopkins, who's a very, very smart man who kills his wife, shoots his wife in the head and then admits it. But then
the way you worded that.
I mean, but like, it's
Hold on. JJ, what you just said was who is a very smart man who shoots his wife in the head.
Yeah. He finds out that his wife is having an affair and he shoots her in the head. And then you think like, oh, it's an open shut murder case, right? No. Anthony Hopkins is smarter than he appears to be. So I love movies like that. And the Lincoln Lawyer does it almost as good as any other movie you're going to find out there.
God damn it. JJ, I would love to see that as a genre curated at a video store. Like JJ's picks. These are all picks where a hot shot in their field gets outsmarted by another hot shot in their field, and they have to
minutes. Yeah, exactly. Who gets outsmarted by another? Yeah, like I will curate that for a future podcast because I know there's several movies like that I've watched over the years. One of the things that makes the Lincoln Lawyer so interesting is every now and then people have convinced themselves that they went and saw a movie with Matthew McConaughey, but it turns out Matthew McConaughey is not in it, but they're positive he was. And it's because they saw a movie with Josh Lucas in it. Josh Lucas is the poor studio's Matthew McConaughey. He's got the Southern drawl. They almost look identical. I don't know why they haven't played brothers yet. In this one, Josh Lucas plays the defense attorney, and Matthew McConaughey plays, and in a stroke of genius, which is like this director was like, we got to put these two on screen together. We're going to blow people's friggin' minds.
Josh
They're
Lucas
never going to believe it.
Josh Lucas is basically Matthew McConaughey if you're looking at him from like a distance without glasses.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Matthew McConaughey, but it's Josh Lucas.
Or like this, if you are cleaning a room, like if you're cleaning out the cupboards in your kitchen and you have this playing in the background, and you are quote unquote watching the movie Sweet Home Alabama, you're positive you just watched a movie with Reese Witherspoon and Matthew McConaughey, but it's not. You watched a movie with Reese Witherspoon and Josh Lucas.
Yeah, like you might be going, there's no way they'll ever be able to bring Matthew McConaughey back into the MCU. He was already in that first Hulk movie with Ang Lee, but nope, wasn't Matthew McConaughey.
Right. So I think it's a stroke of genius that they put these two guys in there and then put them in on opposite ends of the ring. Wonderful. So we finished The Lincoln Lawyer, and The Lincoln Lawyer ends with an amazing song. And it's a song that I love so much that I used the Shazam on my phone when I first saw this movie and downloaded it. It was my ringtone alarm for a long time. And it's got this kind of like, this like 70s R&B feel to it, but it's got a modern remix. It's a phenomenal song. I really, really dig it. And so if anything, sit through all the credits of The Lincoln Lawyer. You're in for a treat. Also, I noticed this. No one's really done a great job scoring a Matthew McConaughey movie.
Oh.
The Newton Boys, which is set in the 1920s, tries to use a lot of like 1920s type music, but they never really get the kind of ragtime speakeasy feel that they get. And they certainly don't get the countrified version. They're like, oh, well, we'll put some twang in there and we'll add a harmonica. And it's like, no. Take a lesson out of the Coen brothers book. They do an amazing job when it comes to music and how it evokes a feeling like an "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou." In The Lincoln Lawyer, I don't think that the score is very good. It's just a bunch of tones. As I said in We Are Marshall, they could have used a much better collection of music. Fool's Gold doesn't do it. They're like, oh, it's in the island, so we'll use an islandy theme. And Ed TV it feels like it's 1997 when you watch Ed TV. It is, you're going to hear music, the type of stuff you would have seen on shows like Malcolm in the Middle.
Since Matthew McConaughey is the common denominator there, do you think he's the reason the scores don't work out? Like the person making the score is just so distracted by McConaughey that it like throws their aim off?
So, okay, here's the problem I think you have with Matthew McConaughey. He rarely plays a role in which his accent makes sense. Okay. And I think that's part of the problem, is because if his accent made sense in the like premise of the film, like for example, if you took Ed TV and it was set in Dallas rather than San Francisco,
right? I
think you can lean into that red dirt country music and that plays better for him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Here's a perfect example. In flippin' Dazed and Confused, he plays the perfect 70s, creepy kind of guy who's been out of high school for a few years, but still goes to the high school parties. And they nail that musically in there. Every time you see him, like there's the perfect song that he would play with his muscle car showing up to these scenes. Okay, so we finished The Lincoln Lawyer, which out of all of these movies is probably the one I could watch over and over the most. And we go for Two for the Money, where they team up Matthew McConaughey with Al Pacino.
Damn.
They also include Jeremy Piven and Rene Russo in this movie.
The movie's not called Who Can Talk Louder?
No, but you get some amazing Al Pacino where he's like, I'm doing this in one take. That's all you're getting. One take. Here we go. What? There's no ATM machine? Whoa. Everyone take lunch. There are like directing him these days must just sort of be like, you get what you get and you got to hope that some of it's going to land.
He's like the Hulk. You can't tell him what to do. You can only aim him.
Right. Are you feeling like watching the Hulk? Because this is the second Hulk reference you've made in like 5 minutes.
I've been spending a lot of time with my superhero movies lately, so I think it's just on the mind.
So, Two for the Money. It's Matthew McConaughey starts, and this is based on a true story as well. Starts off with him being a college level pro, like athlete who probably was going to go pro, and then he blows out his knee. He loves football so much though that he's able to see things in practices and reports that other people don't see. And he runs a 1-900 number in Las Vegas where he gives his picks for gamblers. He doesn't gamble himself, but he tells them, listen, the Jets are going against the Titans this week. And I think, it's going to be the Jets all the way. And this is what I think. And they're going to cover the spread by this many. So people who love gambling already have the vernacular needed to get into the depths of Two for the Money. Al Pacino's character comes in, and what Al Pacino's character does is he runs a company that's called, it's like touting, T-O-U-T, tout. So they're people who tell you how to bet. And it's a service that he has put together, and he's got people who go on and sell, and they make money when you make money. So if you go to your bookie and you put down $20,000 based on the advice of one of these touts, they get 10% of your winnings. If you lose, they're not out any money, but they don't get any money.
That sounds like a pretty sweet business setup.
Oh, it's huge. And then what they do is they also have salespeople who bully you into instead of making a $500 bet to make a $5,000 bet. Stuff like, hey man, you gotta grow some nuts. Why am I wasting my time on you? I'm not even gonna give you my tips anymore unless you put some serious money down.
Right.
And so she's a hot shot. He's a hot shot, and it's funny because in this they play up how kind of much of a simpleton and rube he is. Like, he orders bruschetta at one point, and they're like, it's pronounced bruschetta, So, and he's like, how about $1,000 bottle of wine? He goes, I've never had $1,000 bottle of wine, but I've also never had a $10 bottle of water. And so he plays kind of this simple character who lives with Al Pacino and his wife Renee Russo at the same time, and it turns out that both of them, like Renee Russo was a former junkie, and Al Pacino used to be addicted to gambling and drinking, but he doesn't do that anymore. It is just kind of a bizarre movie, and of course the blush ends up off the rose, and he makes some bad picks, and it is just kind of a bizarre movie start to finish that I think they rushed this into production, and all of a sudden they're like, well, no one's written an ending. Well, it's based on a true story. What really happened? Well, that's boring. So let's make up our own ending. Armand Asante is in this movie and plays a big time gambler who urinates on Matthew McConaughey at one point in this movie.
Fun.
And it is unsettling to watch someone pee on another person. I know that there's people out there who really dig that, but it is hard for me to like. That scene is hard to watch, and it just makes me think of, I've never done anything in my life that warrants that kind of retribution from another human being.
Yeah. That's the kind of line that I wish I could turn into an episode title for us. It's unsettling to watch someone pee on another person.
Well, and like it's an odd moment, and it's interesting because so he's this multimillionaire, and he has like he has his bodyguard, and his bodyguard holds on to him, and he always stays like 6 feet away, so he's right out of reach of Matthew McConaughey, and that is like, it's very telling about his attitude towards other people, that like he doesn't, he wants to be intimidating and he wants to have the muscle, but he doesn't want to do anything himself until he knows it's totally safe to go pee on him. So Two for the Money, Jill did not care for Two for the Money. When it ends, you're a little surprised at it. And like, it reminds me, the end scene reminds me, if you've ever seen the movie Insomnia, where Al Pacino plays a cop who's being investigated for killing his partner.
Yeah.
And he can't sleep. He goes up to Alaska to help solve a crime, and he doesn't sleep for like 14 days. And kind of the way he acts at the end of that movie, where he's, in the throes of insomnia, is sort of the way he acts at the end of this movie.
Gotcha.
It also has a piece of gadgetry that I totally forgot about, which was when the hot thing for home video cameras was to have a mini DVD disc that would burn, like instead of a tape, you're burning onto the DVD while you're recording through this little camera. And I immediately went on it. You can buy them now for like $6, but at the time they were like $1,200. And I remember looking at those. I remember wanting one so bad, thinking like, "Oh, this is the future." Now it's the past. Okay, so then we move on to a double dose of Matthew McConaughey rom-coms. Now, Matthew McConaughey at one point was a very bankable romantic comedy lead. So,
you don't think he still is?
What was that?
You don't think he still is?
No, I do not. I do not think that he would take a role like that today.
But
I think he now has enough street cred
in that spot.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he's got enough street cred now where he doesn't have to be in a romantic comedy if he doesn't want to. Like Mark Ruffalo is another example, right? Mark Ruffalo did a lot of romantic comedies and now has earned a different style of street cred where he doesn't have to make those. And I don't think that people necessarily want to make romantic comedies over and over and over again because they're incredibly formulaic.
Right.
Even though they're bankable, but they're formulaic. So I started with How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, which also has Adam Goldberg in it because, you know, he likes to work with his friends. He likes to put his friends back in movies as well as Kate Hudson. Also in this movie is an actress who I've always really liked called Shalom Harlow. She plays one of the Judys, this rival group, and Matthew McConaughey is an ad executive and he wants to land this big account where it's the people who sell the diamonds to the diamond jewelers and stuff like that. And Kate Hudson works for a Cosmo magazine ripoff and she has to make lists like 10 ways to get out of a ticket. And she doesn't want to do that. She wants to do serious journalism. So she has to do how to lose a guy in 10 days. So she pretends to be the crazy over obsessed female while he makes a bet that if he can convince a girl to fall in love with him in 10 days, that he knows how to, advertise to women. The classic setup, and the only people who know this are the bad guys, Judy and Judy. And so they pit both of them against each other, and the rest is a little bit of history. The thing that I don't care for about How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is she goes so over the top that you would think that this person actually probably is suffering from some kind of mental disorder. You would think that this person is probably in the throes of like a bipolar, like a manic stage at moments. And so rather than like having that discussion, having like a frank discussion about that, they decide to do a fake couples counseling, and they go to a Knicks game, and in the last minute she needs something to drink. She's thirsty. And so he has to miss the end of the Knicks game. But then she turns out to actually fall in love with him. Now, what I think is interesting is she actually falls in love with him, but this whole time he doesn't say anything about actually falling in love with her. Although, like in the last 10 minutes, he's like, "I love you, Andy." And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. You think you're just doing this for a bet, and there's nothing that, even when he brings her home, it's not like all of a sudden he forgets how nuts that she was. And so that's and I know I'm breaking down a very simplistic thing. Also, it shows the New York City that I'll never experience, which is you can always get dinner reservations and you can always get into the coolest club. And you've got parents who have a waterfront home in New Jersey and Long Island. And I don't understand where this one gets most of its steam, but it is a great romantic comedy. Everyone likes watching it. And who doesn't love watching Matthew McConaughey be as charming as possible? That being said, I work with a guy who looks just like Matthew McConaughey in this next movie I'm going to talk about, The Wedding Planner.
Oh, that doesn't seem like it's a big change. Isn't that normal Matthew McConaughey?
No, it's a different Matthew McConaughey because it's a romantic comedy where he is not the lead.
Oh,
Jennifer Lopez is the lead in this movie. There are long scenes that don't involve him at all.
But it meets the ratio.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say probably 60%, maybe a little bit more, but he certainly isn't the bulk of this movie. It's Jennifer Lopez. She even has a song on the credits, so she even gets credits time. The thing about The Wedding Planner is I realized while watching it why I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theaters. Because it's garbage. And not that garbage is bad for everybody, but it's not something I want to eat again. So think of it like this. Do you like Velveeta cheese, Tucker?
I do.
Okay. So I like Velveeta cheese as well, but I'm certainly not going to put Velveeta cheese on everything I eat.
Correct.
The wedding planner has J-Lo in everything.
I see.
It's too much J-Lo.
J-Lo is the Velveeta cheese.
She's the Velveeta cheese. And I would have liked a little bit, of, guacamole, which is
often Velveeta is used when you're trying to give children their vegetables and they won't eat them. So you drown it in something that they like the flavor of. Do you think that was happening here? Were there vegetables underneath Jennifer Lopez?
No, I think, well, for starters, she's supposed to be Italian. And I don't understand. Like, her dad seems like he was a fresh off the boat Italian immigrant who married a woman that he was like prearranged to marry. So she probably was Italian as well. He's trying to get her to marry like an immigrant man named Massimo, who's Italian. He's like, tomato, I learned we do the manly things and I love a wrestle. It's like a more handsome version of the Mario ripoff drummer from Chuck E. Cheese.
Right.
So she's supposed to be Italian through this whole thing, and you're like, well, you can't buy Jennifer Lopez as Italian. Like, it just doesn't fit.
Right.
So,
well, I keep thinking of like Zorro and Catherine Zeta-Jones and Anthony Hopkins were supposed to be Spanish.
Right. And you're like, Anthony Hopkins is a smart billionaire who's going to murder his wife by shooting her in the head. He's not Zorro. So in this movie, this movie's like, oh, here's the other thing I have a problem with, right? So Jennifer Lopez is a beautiful woman with an amazing career who desperately wants to find someone, but she doesn't. And like that's her whole character's arc in this, is that like, oh, I wish I could find someone, but I can't. And I'm like, that is such a lie. I don't believe that for a minute. Judy Greer also has a role in this where she plays her assistant, and I feel like that was Judy Greer's entire career for like 10 years. Always playing the main
looks like a secretary.
Assistant. You're right, yeah. Secretary, assistant. Kathy Najimy's in this movie, and she plays the boss, and she's a blonde. And I was like, oh, it's Kathy Najimy. Makes me want to watch Hocus Pocus, which also stars Sarah Jessica Parker, who is in Failure to Launch, which I did not watch during my Matthew McConaughey marathon. So the movie starts and ends, and I really don't care about anybody. And at the end, Bridget Wilson Sampras, who was Billy Madison's love in the movie Billy Madison, turns out that they don't really love each other, but they spent a ton of money, and I mean like a ton, like $4 million on a wedding. And I'm like, no, nobody does that. Like, who decides they're not going to get married 5 minutes before they get married?
Right.
If
the dramatic tension, the timing.
Right. And you know what's going to happen the whole time too. That's the problem. Is right. You know, while you're watching this, you're like, okay, well, they're not going to get married because he's secretly in love with Jennifer Lopez because she doesn't eat the multicolored peanut M&Ms as well. Give me something that's a little more realistic. And I'm not saying that it has to be hyper realistic, because I know that this is a movie, but give me something more like he marries her and after 2 months they decide to get a divorce because it, you know, what you think you need is ultimately not what you need, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. They remember that each other farts.
Right. Yeah. So that is the end of my Woody Harrelson marathon, with the exception of
Woody Harrelson marathon.
What was that?
Your Woody Harrelson?
My Woody Harrelson. No, I was gonna say that's actually where we're going next. So
that's how easy it is to confuse those two as well.
Well, so what we decided to do was we were going to bridge one marathon into the next, and we decided to go for a Woody Harrelson marathon next by watching True Detective Season 1 and letting that lead into the Woody Harrelson marathon, because Woody Harrelson has some really interesting movies out there as well, including a movie that he shot live.
So you're counting a TV show as part of the movie binge?
It's not TV, it's HBO.
Oh, look at you.
right? I use their own slogan right back against you.
It's a series, but I see what you're doing. I get it.
Does
that mean that you're going to have to hit Cheers?
No, that's NBC.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to include network television. We also, in between each of these, watched some like clips from other Matthew McConaughey pieces. For example, we watched his Between Two Ferns.
Okay.
Which is great. And
little appetizers.
Yeah, really it is. One of my favorites is when he's interviewing Matthew McConaughey, and this is during the bloopers, and he goes, were you as surprised as the rest of America was that you won an Academy Award for, of all things, acting? And it's an instant blooper. So now you might say to yourself, whoa, you're missing some of Matthew McConaughey's best movies, including his Oscar-turning role in Dallas Buyers Club.
Mm.
And I'd say, well, yeah, you're right. But, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Notably left out of this marathon, and not because we didn't, we just didn't get around to it. Okay. I will start with, of course, Interstellar, which was a movie that I saw and I didn't understand, and I saw it again. And I think I understand it, but I don't necessarily enjoy it. The Dallas Buyers Club, Magic Mike, Killer Joe. But the one that we didn't get to that I really want to was a movie called Bernie with Jack Black. Have you ever seen Bernie?
Ooh, I love that movie. That's an interesting film. And
it's a movie written and directed by Richard Linklater, who of course, Dazed and Confused was in his background. So he had worked previously with Matthew McConaughey as well. And so the thing I like about Bernie is this. Bernie is the story about a really likable guy in a small town in Texas who befriends the mean rich old lady in town, and none of the people know why, and then he kills her.
Mm-hmm.
Then Matthew McConaughey plays the attorney, and it's all done as a documentary, as a mockumentary. So they're interviewing all of these people, plus they're interviewing Matthew McConaughey, Jack Black, and what's her name? Oh shoot, she was in the old lady in the movie.
Yeah, I'm blanking on who the actor is.
Right, and she's amazing too. Why can't I think of it? She was in Steel Magnolias. Shirley MacLaine. So what's interesting about it is Jack Black, Matthew McConaughey, Shirley MacLaine are the only three people in this movie who are actors. The rest of the people are actual town members, because this is based on a real true story. And they all talked about how much they loved Bernie, and Bernie was the nicest guy and he would do anything for you. And the town actually thinks that he should have gotten off because she was such a mean, nasty old woman that the world's better off without her. And it is one of the most just entertaining, funny, fascinating movies. It's the type of movie where after you watch it, you easily want to go in and Google and read some old newspaper articles and find out how this became a movie.
Well, and you'll find out some pretty interesting stuff too, because I believe Linklater actually let him let Bernie live in his property or something at one point during all of this too. Because Bernie is he now? He's not in prison anymore. Or I actually can't remember right now.
I believe he is out of prison now. You're correct.
Out of prison now. Okay, yeah, no, really, really, really good movie. Check that one out for sure.
Yeah. So there are some other great Matthew McConaughey roles that just didn't fall into this one. Another one that I like too is do you ever see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I think it's The Next Texas Chainsaw Massacre is what it's called.
No, and I had no idea he was involved in that.
Yeah, and he it's him. Renee Zellweger is in it as well, and he has I think a mechanical hip in it.
Okay,
it is hard to watch. That's actually one of the movies where they probably nailed the score because it was based in Texas and his drawl actually matched it.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, you did not ever say that this was going to be an authoritative, you know, it was just a marathon. It's like, hey, between this time and that time, let's watch a bunch of movies that have at least 50% Matthew McConaughey representation. I think you guys did that extraordinarily well.
Now, there is one big downside to this. So I used an app called Just Watch to help tell me where these movies are streaming at that time. And so I load into Just Watch under my profile the streaming services I have. So it tells me, oh, it's available, let's say on Peacock, and it'll load that for me. In this case, I ended up having to rent a couple of them off of Amazon, but some were on Netflix and Hulu. This is the downside. It has completely thrown off my suggestions on all of these apps.
Oh, yeah. They're
showing me pure Matthew McConaughey based recommendations.
I'd love to, like, if there is an employee at Amazon who has to sift through these and go, God, this guy really likes Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, and I posted about it on social media, and I was hoping that I posted enough that maybe Mr. McConaughey would see this.
Well, I wonder how many McConaughey marathons happen, though, in the country within a calendar year. I mean, it's just got to be immense. There's no way he can stay on top of all of them.
You think so?
I think so. I think he's beloved at that level.
He could take a second away from playing bongos naked to acknowledge the fact that JJ and Jill Gordon in Little Fargo, North Dakota rang in the new year with him and his southern drawl and his pretty bedroom eyes and that, my God, his chest. Have you looked at that man's chest?
Yeah.
If JJ, only I could look that good.
I think you guys have started your New Year's off correctly.
Yeah. In fact, you kind of took it from the beginning, but I've been telling people, like, how's your New Year? Well, it's all right, all right, all right. Also, here's a joke that I wrote a few years ago that I remembered writing when I saw this. Ready for this?
I'm ready.
If you're a woman and you've devoted your life to God and you are wearing a habit every day, but you want to decorate your room somehow, where do you go?
I have no idea.
You go to Pier None.
That's one of those, like, hey, fuck you jokes. That's one of those, like, I'm pissed that you gave me a setup that I had to listen to the punchline to.
Pier None. Hey, I also want to, I know that the Matthew McConaughey bit is done, but I want to take just a quick moment too and Tucker ask you how your New Year's was.
No, it was actually great, and don't apologize for the Matthew McConaughey thing. I did not expect it to go for 50 minutes, but hey, that's awesome. We just knocked out an episode basically from that. I thought in my notes, because I have notes for this episode, I was like, okay, we'll talk about Matthew McConaughey here for like a minute or two. Then I'll move on. But hey, I love it. I love it when JJ just runs. That's what the show should be. My New Year's has been great. I've been working on my apartment because my 2020, like everyone's, was incredibly stressful, especially the ending portions of it. And man, I've never felt the kind of burnout that I felt in December of 2021. So for the past 2 weeks, whenever I have downtime, I've been wholly devoting it to like trying to make sure that I can start 2021 off on the right foot. And so the past couple of days, I've just been at home working on my apartment, which looks fantastic, JJ. I know I've said this on the podcast a few times before, and you know this from personal experience. If you've ever looked in an apartment that I've lived in over the past 2 decades, you'd never know if I'm moving in or moving out in that moment because I just never cared enough to pay attention to it. Well, I can say that is no longer the case.
Whoa.
Which is incredibly exciting for me. So just been focusing on that and thinking about New Year's resolutions, which is actually something I wanted to focus on a little bit in this episode, JJ.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about New Year's resolutions in general. You know, both JJ and I love New Year's resolutions. We each make them every year. Every year when I make mine, I make them privately and I don't tell them to anyone unless I complete them, which is very rare that I do complete them. And I'm going to keep that going this year. I'm not going to say what my personal New Year's resolution is going to be unless I actually complete it this year, and then I'll tell you about it. However, I would like for us to make some New Year's resolutions for the show. And I have an approach I would like to take to make these New Year's resolutions, JJ, if you're willing to fall into my arms here for a couple of minutes.
Lay it on me, baby.
Excellent. So I have a series of questions, JJ, for you that you're going to answer. And your answers will help decide the things that we're going to aim to do with this show in 2021. Now, as an example, this is not the actual question, but we'll start with a number 10 question, because this goes from question 9 down to 1. Question number 10, if it was a part of this, would be like this. JJ, name for me 10 flavors of ice cream that we're going to have to try on the show in 2021. And then you would just name off 10 flavors of ice cream, right?
Okay.
And after that, we would have, say, 10 flavors of ice cream. We have to eat those 10 flavors of ice cream in 2021 on this show to accomplish our resolution. I want to express that is not limiting. That doesn't mean there are ice creams that aren't on that list that we can't. It just means we need to finish that list of ice cream before the end of the year. Does that make sense?
Sure. It is the jumping off point.
It's the jumping off point. And like I did, that was question number 10. That's just a fake test question. But the rest of the questions are formulated like that, JJ. I want to get you answering these kind of off the top of your head a little bit. And then we're gonna run through these. So it's 9 through 1. I couldn't come up with a 10th question. The ice cream one was the best I could do. So we won't hold ourselves to that one. But these are going to help outline our resolutions for 2021. And listeners at home, we would love it if you actually followed along and came up with what your own answers for these would be and message them to us on Facebook. We can't promise you that we'll add yours to our resolution, but that's a really nice way to find out what our listening audience would like to hear from us in the new year. So feel free to follow along at home, but the answers that JJ comes up with are going to be our official ones for 2021. So JJ, are you ready to do this?
I am ready and raring.
Okay, and I'm going to be writing all these down. So JJ, I want you to name 9 party games, like board games, card games, or whatever, that we have to play on this show in 2021.
Okay. 9 party games that we have to play.
Yep.
Let's start with Apples to Apples Junior.
Apples to Apples Junior. Okay.
A full game of Monopoly.
Full Monopoly. Got it.
A one-off edition of Dungeons and Dragons hosted by one of our previous guests. So single episode, one of those things.
Okay, so D&D. And by the way, these are just games we have to play on the show. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to devote an episode to it.
Right. Oh, but that's got to be. I feel like that's fun enough to be an episode. Okay.
It's whatever you want.
Taboo.
Okay.
Categories.
Got it. 2, 3, 4. That's 5. We need 4 more.
And one of the versions of Munchkin.
Got it. 3 more.
What is the name of that? But we'll just throw Balderdash in there because I like Balderdash.
Balderdash. Okay, that is 7. We need 2 more.
2 more. Then let's do. Let's do. At one point, didn't you have a board game, like an old board game, like a Saved by the Bell?
I have a Miami Vice, the game board game.
That's the one. We're gonna play that Miami Vice game.
Got it. We need 1 more.
Last but not least, before the end of the year, I would like us on this show to play a board game that I have secretly been working on for the last 6 months.
I'm going to call it JJ's Secret Game.
Yep.
Okay. So in 2021, we on this show at some point have to play Apples to Apples Junior, Monopoly, a full game, a one-off edition of D&D hosted by a previous guest. We'll do a game of Taboo, a game of Categories, a game of Munchkin, Balderdash, Miami Vice, the board game, and JJ's Secret Game. It doesn't have to be in this order, but we need to get all these crossed off our list by the end of this year. Perfect. All right, that's our first question, JJ. Let's keep on rolling.
I love it.
JJ, name 8 foods that we have to reference in episode titles in 2021.
Buffalo wings, French fries,
okay,
pizza with fruit as a topping,
okay,
gravy.
That's 4. We need 4 more.
Mm-hmm. A solid frozen liquid of some kind. So, for example, a popsicle.
Let's just say popsicle.
Well, I think that we limit ourselves to a brand name if we do that.
Okay.
I mean, I hate to be that person who's
Got
brand
it.
loyal.
Solid frozen liquid of some kind.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm the one answering this.
Yep, you're right. Yes, and that's what I'm supposed to do here.
A food shaped like a person.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 2 more.
Meatloaf and flesh.
Flesh. Okay. Human flesh or just flesh?
Just flesh.
Okay.
The episode will dictate that.
Got it. Yeah. So there are name 8 foods that we have to reference in the episode titles in 2021: buffalo wings, French fries, pizza with fruit as a topping, gravy, solid frozen liquid of some kind, food shaped like a person, meatloaf, and flesh. All right. That's that. Excellent. Next up, JJ, name 7 U.S. states that we will devote episodes to in 2021.
Oh, I love it. Delaware, Texas, Florida, Mississippi,
it's IPPI. Okay.
Wyoming,
2 more.
Washington
State, and last but not least,
Ohio.
Okay. So in the year 2021, JJ Meets World will be devoting 7 episodes to these 7 U.S. states: Delaware, Texas, Florida, Mississippi, Wyoming, Washington State, and Ohio. Excellent. So now you can all see how our 2021 resolution is like fleshing out a little bit. This will, I think, help guide us as we keep making new episodes in this year. Okay. JJ, name 6 previous guests on JJ Meets World that you would like to bring on the show as a special guest co-host in 2021, meaning we bring someone back for one episode that's going to be a special guest host. And we're not limited to 6. I just want you to name 6 right now. We need to make sure we get this year.
Sure. Alex Rydell. Tristan Ross. Kevin Kennedy. Britta Nelson.
2 more.
Let me pull an oddball one out of there that I just don't think that. Oh, let's go with Jay Nelson.
1 more. Pamela Straight. I love it. All right. These 6 people, if they are listening to this episode of JJ Meets World, we'll let you know outside of this as well. Consider this your official invite to appear on JJ Meets World in the year 2021 on an episode as a special guest co-host with JJ, where you'll end up interviewing someone. Alex Rydell, Tristan Ross, Kevin Kennedy, Britta Nelson, Jay Nelson, and Pam Straight.
Love it.
Which one of those are you most excited for? It's okay to pick a favorite.
I love chatting with Alex Rydell, and I've probably listened to his episode more than any other episode of JJ Meets World.
Nice. He's just such a good guy, isn't he? He's a friendly guy.
It's great. He's a
talented,
great, amazing, and like he's got a positivity about him that I think we need more of in the world.
Right. Okay, JJ, name 5 pieces of merchandise you would like for us to offer in 2021. I'd say let's go with stuff we don't already offer right now.
Sure. A 3D printed you and I.
Okay.
A pillowcase.
Ooh, I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Pillowcase.
A mug. I mean, do we count mugs? You and I personally have mugs, but
are we not offering them right now on the merch shop?
I don't know. This is a good reminder to tell people there is a merch shop.
Yeah, should we do just like a drinking vessel of some kind?
Yeah. Like a pint glass or something. Yeah, so it can be something else like that.
Drinking vessel. Okay.
Yep.
2 more.
A daily calendar.
Ooh, I like that one a lot. And 1 more.
Like our own version of Cameo, where you can get me to make a video for a loved one celebrating anything you choose.
Beautiful. Okay, so everyone listening to this, at some point in 2021, we resolve to make available to you in our merch shop 3D printed copies of JJ and myself, a JJ Meets World pillowcase, a JJ Meets World drinking vessel of some kind, a daily calendar, and you can pay JJ for a cameo to show up in just like the website Cameo. We'll figure out a different way to do it, unless we can get you on Cameo somehow, which would be fantastic. Okay.
I think that we probably could too. Like,
I bet we could. I don't know what the rules are, but I would love to like be the cheapest cameo of like a no-name person where, hey, I got you this happy birthday from Tucker from North Dakota. It was $1. Right? All right, JJ, we're getting down here. Name 4 movies you would like us to do episodes on in 2021.
Ooh, okay. Gremlins,
which I just bought on DVD.
Oh, listen, the audio commentaries, I'm telling you, Tucker, are amazing.
Nice. All right, you got 3 more.
Gremlins, The Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank. 2 more.
The movie Fargo.
Fargo. And
Captain Ron.
Beautiful. Captain Ron. Okay, we'll finally do that one. You son of a bitch. Gremlins, Shawshank Redemption, Fargo, and Captain Ron. Episodes devoted to these coming soon. They could be anything from commentaries to retrospectives to whatever. We'll figure it out, right, Jage?
Right.
Okay. All right. Now we're getting to the real exciting ones. These are my favorites. JJ, I don't want you to hold back on this question, okay? I want you to swing for the fences on this one. Okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
JJ, name 3 guests you would like to get on our show in 2021. No name is too big or too small.
Okay. May I tweak this slightly?
Okay.
To say somebody who's been a cast member on Saturday Night Live.
Got it. SNL cast member. That
SNL
works.
Cast member. I don't care who it is, but one of them.
Perfect. That's 1.
Stephen Tobolowsky.
Tobo. Got it.
And okay, swinging for the fences. Who would I love to have on here? Jeff Griggs.
Jeff Griggs?
Griggs. He's the man who wrote Guru, My Days with Del Close.
Oh, I'm sorry, B or G at the beginning of that?
G, as in good.
Griggs?
Yep.
Nice. So an SNL cast member, Stephen Tobolowsky and Jeff Griggs, we are going to attempt to get those 3 guest fulfillments on JJ Meets World in 2021.
Oh my God.
All right.
I am so excited.
I'm excited for that. Okay. Last 2. JJ, name 2 locations where you would like to record our show in 2021. Meaning you and I are going to go someplace anywhere on this planet, obviously regarding with, protocols with COVID and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Name 2 locations where you and I were going to go there and we're going to record an episode there.
I would love to record an episode in Kentucky featuring your grandmother.
Beautiful.
Because that would be flipping amazing.
Yeah.
And I would like to do another one at one of the top 20 film festivals in the United States.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, so Kentucky featuring Mama Luke and something in the top 20 film fests. And who would have that list as to like what makes it top? Is that like top attendance or?
I think like if you Googled like top film festival, like in my mind, South by Southwest, why is nothing else coming to mind all of a sudden? I would even constitute what's the one that is in Park City that I can't think of? Sundance.
Mm-hmm.
I think a simple Googling of top 20 And it doesn't have to be at the top. It could be a film festival that we go to for something,
Yeah, and next time too that we have our most frequent guest, Greg Carlson, on the show. He is a film festival guru in and of his own right, so he can definitely give us some guidance. So I love it. In 2021, we will attempt to make an episode in Kentucky featuring my beautiful grandmother, Mama Luke, and we'll do an episode at a top 20 film fest in the country. So, that those things are probably going to happen towards the later end of the year, my guess, depending on how things are going with COVID, but we're going to make it go for it. So awesome. And then finally, JJ, this is my favorite question. And I hope I'm not building it up too much. I probably am because I'm calling it my favorite. But this is the one I'm looking forward to the most. JJ, name one holiday that doesn't normally get a special devoted to it on television that we will make a special episode of in 2021.
I would love to tell you that I have never thought about this before, but I have a very specific holiday that we've celebrated in my house and in my culture that comes up very soon, actually, at the time of this recording. And that would be Robert Burns' birthday.
Ooh.
Robert Burns is a Scottish poet who wrote like Auld Lang Syne, and a bunch of he's a very famous dude, a red rose. Just there's all this stuff, and he's huge in Scotland. And I know that the St. Andrew Society in Fargo still does a party on Robert Burns' birthday.
Oh, and that's January 25th.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's coming right around the corner. So we could knock that one off right off the bat. That'd be a great resolution.
I got to see here too, like what day of the week that ends up on this year. Let's just see. 25th is a Monday, JJ. Whoa! Look at that. Excellent. Well, hey, everyone. Our episode on Monday, January 25th is going to be devoted to Robert Burns' birthday. So excellent. All right. Well, listen. We have now just crafted the JJ Meets World 2021 New Year's resolution. In the year 2021, we here at JJ Meets World resolved to play these 9 party games on the show: Apples to Apples Junior, a full game of Monopoly, a one-off edition of Dungeons and Dragons hosted by a previous guest, Taboo, Scatagories, Munchkin, Balderdash, Miami Vice, the board game, and a JJ Secret game. We resolved to name 8 foods in references in our episode titles: buffalo wings, French fries, pizza with fruit as a topping, gravy, solid frozen liquid of some kind, food shaped like a person, meatloaf, and flesh. We will name 7. We will do 7 U.S. states devoted to episodes: Delaware, Texas, Florida, Mississippi, Wyoming, Washington, and Ohio. We will have 6 previous guests on the show as special guest co-hosts, and we are inviting Alex Rydell, Tristan Ross, Kevin Kennedy, Britta Nelson, Jay Nelson, and Pam Strait to do the honors. We will offer 5 new pieces of merchandise on our website, jjmeetsworld.com. 3D printed hats, a pillowcase. Or I'm sorry, not hats, 3D printed copies of us, the hosts. I read that wrong. A pillowcase, a drinking vessel of some kind, a daily calendar, and a JJ Meets World specific cameo. We will do 4 episodes based on the movies Gremlins, Shawshank Redemption, Fargo, and Captain Ron. That means an episode each, not 4 episodes on each movie. That would be insane. 3 guests we aim to get on the show in 2021. A current or previous cast member of Saturday Night Live, Stephen Tobolowsky, and the author Jeff Griggs. We resolve to record 2 of our episodes, one in Kentucky featuring my grandmother, Mama Luke, and one at one of the top 20 film fests in the world. And finally, we will produce an episode on Robert Burns' birthday, about Robert Burns' birthday, on Robert Burns' birthday. So January 25th, that's coming up here. That's like in just a couple weeks. JJ, so what do you think happens if we don't meet our resolutions for the year?
Well, I think we treat it kind of like the French Revolution and let the audience pick the punishment for the podcasting kings and queens. So if we don't complete Apples to Apples Junior, I think they're the ones who figure out what the punishment is. Maybe we have to play that on a rooftop somewhere to make up for it. I also think that we should be checking in throughout the year because they need to hold us accountable as the year goes on. If by the end of June we haven't completed 50% of these New Year's resolutions, we need to be held accountable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of these resolutions are very simple and some of them are going to be challenging. So,
right. Like, I feel like we can include like Gravy, Captain Ron, and Robert Burns' birthday almost in the same episode. So,
well, we'll give it the old college try.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. You might notice that I didn't include the animated hit Sing as part of my Matthew McConaughey marathon, and that's because Matthew McConaughey is not a koala bear.